May 2016, I saw it, I think it was about 7:15 p.m. I just saw a message from my mum that was actually just a genuine question asking me and my brother how we were. And my exact words were, "I'm fine, full stop. How's life with everyone else?" And 2 hours later, I attempted suicide. And it wasn't until Christmas in 2016 that I actually shared that with anyone other than my dog. And that was a long process, because I still, even having attempted suicide, felt truly ashamed of the situation I was in. And even in that desperate situation, I still was terrified of sharing that with people and explaining that I actually need help, because I thought that would undermine me as a man. I didn't see another option. My head didn't even consider, maybe the right thing to do here is to be honest. Maybe the right thing to do here is to speak to someone about the situation you're in. The only logical conclusion in my head was that you are better off dead. If anyone feels like that, it's not rational thought, and I understand that it's not rational thought. I've been there, and when I look now with a rational headspace, I can't comprehend how I was in that situation, but I know that nothing makes sense at all, and that's why I'm so keen to try and encourage people to be honest wherever they can, whether they're suffering, whether they're not suffering, and ask for help if they need it, because if you can cut yourself short of getting to the stage, or anywhere near the stage that I did, the stage that thousands and thousands of men get to, then you don't need to be making the same conclusions that I did.
Yeah, I've known Fergus since I was 15, maybe slightly earlier. We went to school together, played sport together, like a couple of best mates. And I think what's so powerful about his message is because when he was going through that really difficult time with his mental health, none of us even knew, none of us even recognised anything was wrong. And it was only when I attended one of his talks he did at Movember's I actually heard the full story in detail. I remember sitting there and it was almost a bit heartbreaking, because you're like, oh, if only we'd known, if only we'd spoken about it. And I think that's what makes the message so powerful, is if we just had conversations about it.
Really what scares me is the things that almost didn't happen. Since then, I mean, I've had loads of great experiences, all the times I've laughed, all the things I've achieved, all the people I've met, girlfriend, dog, family, almost didn't happen. And that was as a result of choosing not to exist over choosing honesty. This little guy was actually a huge part of my roadmap to recovery in many ways. It gave me a sense of structure, a sense of purpose, and a reason to exist, because my life was now responsible for another. And slowly but surely, taking him on walks, dog owners will know, you just say things out loud without thinking, and I was slowly saying things out loud without thinking that were actually quite meaningful to me. And ultimately, he helped get me out of the hole that I was in to be able to reclaim my sense of purpose and reclaim my sense of self again. And as you can see, it wasn't much work to look after either. Let's see how he handles this. Go on. Oh. He's an ongoing source of relief, conversation, and happiness for me, and he'll always have a special place in my heart as the thing that kind of got me back to being who I am. So I owe you a lot, Pig. Take a seat. Thank you very much.
Fergus and I have kind of two relationships, I would say. Initially, coach-athlete, so in 2018, with the first Movember challenge, he came to me for direct coaching.
1st of November, I bodyweight lunged 6,890 metres to represent the 6,890 suicides in the UK and Republic of Ireland in 2018. On the 17th of November, I organised a 13-man workout to represent the 13 male suicides a day. And on the 29th and 30th of November, I ran 94 miles to represent the 94 male suicides every single week in the United Kingdom. So, in simple terms, what I'm taking on this year is, I think, what we can call the world's first vertical marathon, which is the first attempt to continuously ascend 26.2 miles.
We have a strong friendship now, which brings us to this project, I suppose. Hence, us being able to do that together.
With Johnny, it's just we've always just spoken like completely honestly. He's going to be a massive crutch for me, and I'm going to be a massive crutch for him, and that's ultimately what this message is. Like we will get through this better as a unit, being open and honest with each other. When I'm miserable, he might not be as miserable, which means he might be able to bring me up, and it's just that's a simple logic. So I love the mountains. They're really important to me. They're where I feel most peaceful. And I thought, actually, Ross Edgley's pulled a car for a marathon. Somebody swam a marathon. I'm sure somebody's bloody dressed as Big Ben, and there's loads of records for things as marathons, because it is a symbol of endurance, it's a symbol of struggle, and it's a symbol of fight that everybody knows. I thought, has anyone ever done one up the way? Looked around, hadn't been done, and then thought, if this is going to be done, it needs to be done on Nevis. Did the calculations, thought about it, and presented it to my friends as exactly as it was.
We met for a coffee, and he's like, right, this is the plan. And he described what we're doing. At first I was like, that's mental, like that is crazy what we're doing. And then he described what he wanted me to do and how I could get involved. But I was like, mate, I'm so excited to be a part of it, and any way I can do, anything I can do to help.
Saying yes to coaching it and saying yes to being involved was never in question. You know, whatever Fergus is doing, I'm going to support that as his coach and as his friend. Rather than a yes or no question, it became a how question. How do we do it?
And how do we do it?
Don't know, no idea. So how we do it, this has been, from a coaching perspective, it's been interesting for me, because I'm not just coaching Fergus, I'm coaching myself, doing this with him. Nobody's done it before, but we do have things we can draw upon for information. So we can look at long, extreme endurance challenges. Although the sport specificity is very different, there's a lot we can take from that, and we think we've got it right, but time will tell on that one, I think.
The key to get us through it is the aerobic base, which I've built over the past couple of years and really focused on in the hills, because specificity is king with this. You can run miles and miles and miles on the road and build your aerobic base right up, but that's not going to prepare you for that constant repetitive strain in basically a lunging position. The sort of three pillars of this have been just overall strength and resilience, unilateral strength and hip hinging, because the movement of actually placing one foot at an incline in front of the other over and over again is those things. There is a big key message behind it, and that is all around the theme of the mountain, in that we all have our own mountains to face, we all have peaks and troughs, highs and lows to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and all we need to do to try and push through that is to be open, honest, and put one foot in front of the other. I think ultimately what I've always thought would have helped me when I was suffering was, I viewed myself as this figure of strength. I was literally quite strong in the gym, and I always made every effort I could to support my friends, be reliable, etc., all these standard things that you expect of a man. And that was my definition of strength. My mistake was that I viewed vulnerability as a weakness, when in reality I now know that it's actually a massive mark of strength.
My role really is just to basically support Fergus and Johnny throughout Project Vertical, so doing anything I can to help them, working on the logistics of it, getting all the kit to the right places. When they do something like that, which can be so physically demanding, they don't want to be worrying about, oh, has Doug got this, has Doug got that, or what are we eating at this time. If I can just have that prepared and set out for them, it'll make their life, it's not going to be easy, but it might make it a bit easier.
I always knew it would be a logistical challenge, but having seen how much kit there is required, RV points, jerry cans, spare backpacks in case they snap, spare base layers, etc., to cover 11 days. I mean, just the sheer amount of food is a ridiculous amount of food, covering 8,000 to 12,000 calories a day. It's a big logistical, administrational task.
What can go wrong for them?
Well, probably, don't delve into this then, but probably a lot. Like, they are going up it's the highest mountain in the UK in November, in what can be pretty treacherous conditions in Scotland as well. It can get pretty grim up there. There'll be snow, wind. You can experience all four seasons. Like, knowing Scotland, the sun might come out at one point and be way too hot, and the next thing will be snowing.
I think the symbol of doing it in the winter and just the repetitive, monotonous stress and dread. Every time we get down to the car park, knowing that we've got to turn around and go right back up again is going to really just replicate what it feels like every single morning if you're going through a period of ill mental health.
Getting into the mountains is, it becomes a metaphor for a lot of things. We discuss a lot on the mountain that you don't get the beautiful view that you get on the mountain without having to put the work in first, without having to actually struggle and go through some tough moments. To get to the top, to take a breath, to know that you've worked hard, to know that you've achieved something for you, for your soul, it always feels new. Both of us share that affinity with the mountain, but your mountain could be anything.
How do you feel it's all going to go?
Oh, I've always been, I've got every bit of faith in them. Those two guys are some of the hardest working, committed guys and they're quite stubborn in a way. So you can tell them, oh, guys, I don't know if that's a good idea, and they're like, nah, definitely, we'll get it done. And they always seem to do it. They've got this amazing message that's motivating them to do it, and the conversation around mental health is the thing that's powering it all, and that's a really, really powerful driver. So unless I'm having to drag them off that mountain, they'll get it done.
I view the mark of a modern man to be open, honest, and responsible for himself as well as those around him. And I think responsibility to yourself comes down to acknowledging that you're human and that there's things that need to be addressed as part of being a human being with internal wants, needs, desires. And there's nothing we can do about that. That's who we are. It's what we do to control that and understand it that really matters.
I mean, you can look at me and kind of, all the tattoos and all this kind of stuff, and this kind of notion of being a traditional man is this outward expression of being hard, all that kind of stuff, and it sifts into society and into men's heads and into their lives to the point at which then there's a fear of talking about your emotions, because then you're not seen to be that hard man or whatever it might be.
Blokes don't speak, like mates don't. Used to always be just bottle it up and you don't actually speak to anyone about it. Whereas, and I definitely think through the stuff you've done is quite happily text a mate now and say like, look, how are you? And not just the classic, oh, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine. Like, actually, how are you? Like, talk to me, like, what's going on?
We should all strive to find our own version of fulfillment. Mine happens to be these challenges. For you, it might not be anything even comparable. It might be the day job, it might be your pets, it might be being part of a family, it could be anything. But I think we should all make more of an effort to try and find what makes us feel fulfilled. And if anyone can take any message away from what we're doing, it's to try and approach it openly, honestly, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other until you find what makes you happy.